you've won awards, you've been in writers' rooms, you won the Spec That Scene, you're a finalist for Women Right Now. I feel like all of those credentials, which are really important, you know, for moving up in the industry, I feel like they don't matter because this film is so powerful. It speaks for itself. And it speaks towards the quality that you bring as a creative. So can we just applaud again? I don't even know how to begin an articulate discussion because what you created, well, I'll put it this way. So a long time ago, Bill T. Jones made a dance piece, and it was about and for AIDS, and it was being danced by people who were living with AIDS. And I remember like the New York Times dance critic was like, oh, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, I can't critique this. Like, what am I supposed to say? Like, this AIDS, you know, sufferer was a terrible dancer. And I remember reading that and being like, well, maybe this work isn't for you. Maybe it transcends whatever infrastructure, whatever paradigm exists, where something's created and you decide whether it's valuable or not. And I feel like this work does that. It's like, no matter if I ask, you know, this or that, or if people, like, I'm so glad you didn't do the festival circuit with this, because it's like, it doesn't matter what you think, it exists, therefore it is. And there are so few opportunities to encounter Black women speaking authentically about their experience uninterrupted. So let's talk about, so I think part of it is like, we also assume like, oh, you're the filmmaker, like you just made the film, like the film just manifested itself. So take us through this process of how you decided or determined that this was something that needed to be made, and then what was that effort like to get it made?
Thank you so very much, and thank you to everyone coming out. I know it's raining, it's a weekday, and I just appreciate every single person that's here. So research started 7 years ago. A few things were happening at once. So I'm teaching, and I was just a student a couple of years prior, and I'm listening to how teachers are speaking about students. And it was my first time in a multicultural school, and I'm hearing grown teachers say, I could tell she's had sex, look the way she walked. I could tell she's fast, look at that. And I'm just shocked by this, and I'm also in therapy at the same time, learning about childhood and how our childhoods do not end. They just, whatever we had to endure, just extends into our adulthood. And I wanted to find out why. Why can you look at a child and think about their sex life or anything of that nature? Or if a Black girl doesn't want to do something, she's put on punishment. But if the white student doesn't want to do anything, you talk to her calmly, all of these things. And because I've been pretty well versed in Black history, I knew, of course, racism, but I wanted to get to a core part and discuss the bias that they face, and Georgetown came out with a research about adultification bias, and that was the first time I saw the word like out, and I was like, oh, and I read through, it was like 20 pages, I read through it front to back, and I said, this is what we're gonna do. And for 7 years, I was just in research. I was making other films, but I was still doing research. And then around last year, something, if you're an artist, something tells you, I believe it's God, that tells you it's time to make this one. And I assembled an incredible cast, and I crowdfunded on Kickstarter for the, to finance the film, and that's how we got here.
Wow, okay, you do make it sound easy. So, gosh, we had a really great conversation in September, and we talked about the ways that this is valuable, this film, and these conversations that you're having in the film, because we can see it happening in real time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this out there because I feel like it's something that I'm living with right now. Like, I hear a lot of critique of like Kamala Harris's campaign. Like, oh, well, she lost the election. If she had gone on Joe Rogan's show, if she had done this. And I'm like, this was not a failing on her part.
Right.
This was a failing on the part of the American people.
Exactly.
Like, her campaign was fantastic. She's a fantastic candidate. I cannot wait for her to be president.
Especially with the time she was given, too.
Oh,
She was
yeah.
given
No.
a significant reduced time to
Yeah, like,
plan that campaign.
I even was thinking, like, if you all are like me, I'm in my mid-40s, and you grew up with like the Ralph Lauren campaigns, like she even checked that box. Like the boot-cut jeans with the blazer and the shades, like she fits all of the things.
Literally.
So that's why I'm kind of like, I'm using your film and all of the educational potential it has, and I'm letting it sit with me, and I'm using it to see how we continue to discuss and talk about and frame Black girls and Black women.
Even saying, literally, a deep sigh. Kamala's campaign and the reactions to it is 100% what Black women, especially very well qualified Black women, deal with. Even the notion of like she slumped her way to the top. She's going up against someone with 34 felonies of sexual assault.
Why do we care if she's
I mean, I
like
didn't even
somebody?
hear that part. I was like, oh, that's so trite. That's
Right,
so,
that's so typical.
That's
Oh,
so typical.
powerful woman.
But do better with your attempt to like shut her down. You
But
know?
everything was like, oh, she didn't kiss enough butts. She didn't go to the right conservative. It was all about what she did wrong and not how this country sees us. And that is definitely an example of that. I just went to the pool a couple of months ago with my friend. And we were taking her son. And this little girl was just running, just having a good time. And her mom was just like, get back here, acting grown. Running is grown. I'm grown, and I actually run less now than I did when I was a child. I'm confused. It's like, I don't think people even break down what that means. Even if the child says no, you're being grown. Also, only adults are able to have agency and say no. And it's a part of our culture. It's just a rebuttal that people say, and they really don't think about it. But it goes so much more deeper than that.
And I feel like it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, like, let's talk about Serena Williams for a second. On the one hand, you know, it's like, okay, if you think you're grown doesn't work, well, let's try the other approach, which is to infantilize. You know, like a number of years ago, when she contested a call, and there was like these vicious cartoons, you know, that framed her as a toddler having a tantrum. So like when she does bring agency and when she does act in a professional way, then she's framed as a baby, as a child. But as an adult, it's like, you know, I don't know. It's just like how you can't.
It's almost like when you are a child, I need you to grow up so you can take all of this adult responsibility and reprehension. And then when you get older, because I want to bring you lower, then I have to bring you to the level of a child, because I see children as lower as well. We were actually going to use that comic that was there, but a lot of money. I was like, can I draw it myself? And it doing the research was the hardest part. The social media part was the hardest thing to sift through videos and comments and
Because the toxicity of it?
the toxicity of
Yeah.
it. Like, I remember that video I played of Dwayne Wade and his daughter like dancing.
Yeah.
There were thousands of comments. I can only pick 6 because it was just, I felt vile reading it.
Yeah.
And we've watched Serena Williams be the greatest entertainer, the greatest athlete that we've ever seen. And we know if she was a white woman or if she was a white man, that would not happen to her. They would respect her, saying, okay, I don't think that call is correct.
Oh, yeah, no,
You know?
somebody actually even pointed out, like I remember seeing plus the person on social media who had the same, like, there she is, like, pointing at the umpire, and then they took someone from baseball, and he's pointing at his umpire, and the post was like, oh, like Serena Williams, like, being, a child. But the caption on the baseball player was like, so-and-so is disputing a call,
Being a boss.
Like, he is a professional. And I'm wondering, I love that you end the film with this like beautiful long runway on which these women and young women can talk about how they are or going to continue to repair themselves. And it leaves one hopeful. And I'm starting to see ways in which that work and that hopefulness is touching girls and women outside of the Black community. Like now I feel like we're playing Family Feud, like, name that traumatized Black woman. Like, can I see Angel Reese? Right. And I noticed that like everyone's like, oh, you think you're grown with Angel Reese, basketball player. Like, oh, she's trash talking, she's trashy, blah, blah. And then very slowly the conversation shifted as more and more people were like, she's a young woman, she's a child, she's growing, she's figuring it out. And just repeating ad nauseum, and her own players, like her colleagues on other teams saying like, we're all growing, we're getting used to this, we're all competitive. So I hope that by amplifying this message that you've crafted, this space that you have made for this message, that the impact, the waves that will make will continue to inspire others to help and assist in the repair.
I really hope so, because as Black people, we are not just in community with each other. We are in community with so many other people. So even if we fix the language that we say towards each other, it's like, okay, well, I can still go outside of these bounds and still deal with this. And it's everybody's responsibility to drop their bias, to acknowledge their bias when approaching Black girls, because you can be their student, you can be their teacher, you can be their guidance counselor, you could be working with them in corporate America, in any type of job. And so it's not just our responsibility. I really hope that multitude of different people watch this and can think about their tone and what they say and why they say it mostly. I think that is once you get to why am I saying this?
Yeah.
Why am I looking at a child and I want to shut them down or grow them up before they're ready, And I really hope that this film is the start of some of those conversations.
I think it will be. And I'll say, like, the way even, we can't underplay the role of like the neighbor, like I am the annoyed white lady neighbor in my neighborhood. Not too much, because I'm constantly sifting my actions through to be like, okay, can I just let this go? Like, how annoyed are you? Is this just you being middle-aged? And I realized there was like an afternoon where kids were like running down the street, like rambunctious and crazy, and they're yelling, and I'm like, like more noise. And I paused, and I was able to stop and be like, would you be reacting in this way? Or what would your reaction be if those were two white children? I'd be like, oh no. I'd be like, oh, childhood. Like, look at the children running. I was like, damn, like you're doing it, man. Like, that's not cool. Like, these are children who are running and they're yelling and they're exuberant and they're outside. And like, that's fine. And so constantly like being like, child behavior, okay,
Yeah.
I feel like this is where I would add a poignant question to you, and I've come up blank. I've seen this film now a few times, and it's stunned me once more with the profundity of it. So I think now's a good time to turn over questions and comments to the audience. I think that this is a good opportunity for you guys to, because there has to be, ways to ask Chanel about her process, her creative process, the challenges of making a film like this, and I open it up to you guys to ask those questions. And we have someone here with a mic, one of our wonderful assistants.
Hi, I have a burning question. I'm so glad that I stumbled upon this, just sort of randomly. I have a new job. I'm teaching ninth grade English in Harlem. And it is, I'm loving it, right? But it's so, it's watching this, the whole time I was thinking, it's not good enough for me to not be part of the problem. I really want to be part of the solution. But it's so hard to find an authority that is not based in oppression, to find an authority that is, not based in sexism, that is not based in whiteness, that is not based in the ultimate, it's so painful for me that so much of schooling these black kids is about teaching them how to code switch.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm occupied by it. It's probably a lifetime problem. It's not going to be something I solve right in my first year teaching, because I have a lot on my plate. But I really want to hear your perspective and what should I do? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for your question. Thank you for coming. I think, especially when it comes down to code switching, because it is something that we all do have to do. I think at first, when approaching the conversation, say internally, this is not their fault. And so from there, you can approach them and be like, the world works like this. This is why. And this is why I need you to be this way in certain spaces. And here are some other ways you can preserve who you are in those spaces. And I think with talking to children, very similarly to what you just said, it's, as adults, we don't take a pause because we feel like I'm grown, I know everything. I don't need to pause, no kids, no cheering. And it's like you do, because there is still a young child in you as well. And so I think if we thought about how would I want someone to deliver a hard message to me? I want it to be delivered in compassion. I want to know that it's not my fault, that I have to bend and twist in so many different areas. And at the end, reassure them that you are fine, you are great, it's the world that is this way.
Yeah.
Because I think after they leave certain experiences and leave certain spaces, they can still have a good hold on who they are and know that this is just their job, but this has nothing to do with my humanity and my agency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chanel, first and foremost, thank you so much for creating this piece of work. I think it takes a lot as an artist or just anyone who's creatively minded to have an idea and put it out in the world. So shout out to you for that. A question I had as I was watching it, obviously we got a few of your thoughts, more than a few, as the film was going on, and especially doing your one-on-one interviews. But I'm wondering if there's anything that you learned yourself as a part of this process, or maybe that you were surprised by, or that you weren't expecting as you were, communing with all these different Black women?
Thank you. I learned a lot talking to those kids. They were the last interview, they were the last day, and there was no dry eye in the place, because we had went through speaking to women, all different backgrounds, all different ages, and here are these 16, 17, and 18 years old repeating to the T of what some of these women were speaking of. And then even more, because I don't know what it is like to grow up as a child with social media. I don't know what it's like to look at disparaging memes about myself, to see thousands of people's opinions on me as a Black woman. I don't know what that is like. So hearing first and foremost from them what it's like being in school for them, what it's like experiencing life, it allowed me after the shooting to then go back to my inner child and say, wait, well, let me think about some things that I've actually experienced as well. Was that right? Was that okay? Was I safe? Was I protected? And how did that manifest into the woman I am now? How did that build certain triggers so that I could get to be a grown woman? And so I definitely learned a lot from all the women, but the teenagers definitely had me doing months of thinking and rethinking. Yeah.
Now, thank you for this amazing documentary. Me, myself, as a girl dad, kind of gave me a deeper appreciation for the research you did, all the work you put into it. I guess my question is, when will it be available?
I know that's right. So I'm actually talking to a few distribution companies. And so it is most likely, so the top of next year, I'm going on a school tour to show this to a few schools. We have secured Spelman, Georgetown, and Rutgers. That's the schools that I haven't told anybody that. And then around the summertime is when it's going to be available for distribution. But yes, I'm already in talks with 3 different companies.
Yay, we love it.
Thank you. Oh,
Hi. Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. I just want to thank you so much for this film and for the representation of different kinds of Black women in all different sizes and color. That is so wonderful. And each of them, when I watch it, just confirms like what I went through as a child and what my niece went through, because their stories were my stories. So I felt like we were in the kitchen talking, and like they were just telling me everything, and I was like, yeah, that happened to me too, yeah. And like I felt so bonded with them because of the trauma that they experienced, being in the body that they were, and having adults being the authority in how they saw themselves. And so it has been one of my major pet peeves in the work that I do. I work at the Brooklyn Museum, so I interpret artwork. So Deborah Roberts is one of my favorite artists because her process and her art process and how she thinks about the work that she does is about uplifting Black girls. And so like I want to always be mindful of that when I'm doing my work. And so like this is another part of like what I can bring into the room, into the space, to really unpack what it means to have representation and to have an artist or have an artist, you, to talk about this and to shed light on what's going on with our girls in schools and in our neighborhood, in our homes. And I really think that it just should be shown in every school, you know what I mean? And in spaces where the conversation, this, like I send it out to everybody because this is what I do, and I'm like, this conversation is so important, like you really should come and hear, because we're living with Black girls. They're there, we see them every day, and we just don't understand like the trauma that they're going through just being in the world. Like, I'm just sitting here, like, I'm not doing anything, I'm just sitting here, like, how wrong is it to sit? How wrong is it to run? And it's always been like the policing of their bodies, you know? Like, how does that gonna affect them, you know, in relationships,
Right.
and everything and down the road? It is just so impactful, and I wanna thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I need to get a hug from you. I'm not gonna let this makeup slip off. Thank you, because that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted multi-generation of Black women to feel seen. I wanted grandmas, mamas, and daughters to sit down and watch this together. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. The library did this, like, no, it's amazing. Yeah.
We love libraries. And I put this on
The libraries.
while I was